Welcome to the Can Be podcast. I'm your host, Michelle Castle, and I am fired up, totally excited, and inspired by conversations about living life by design, knowing that you and I can be anything and anybody we choose to be. It is as simple as figuring out what it is that we want to be and what we want to do. I believe you and I both have the power within ourselves to create a beautiful life by just changing our thoughts. Today, we'll chat with Geoff Zimpfer, a good friend of mine and author of the book, Disrupt or Die. We're going to talk about the mindset shift that we need to make in order to make changes in our life. We'll cover habits and how you use habits to improve with practice. Welcome, Geoff, today on the Can Be podcast show. Geoff, so grateful to have you on the show today. And I really feel you and I are going to have this beautiful, deep conversation. But first, I want to ask you, you had sent me a copy of Disrupt or Die several years ago. And when I knew that you and I were going to be spending some time together, I was reading through the book. And though a lot of things in technology and the business has changed, so much of what's in this book is still true today. You just update it with current information. Yeah. But I like to know behind the book. What is the story behind the book first?
That's a great question. I love that title too, Behind the Book. It's kind of like behind the brand, right?
Yeah, exactly.
The story behind the book. To be honest with you, it comes from my desire to serve. And that's a theme that I think runs through. It's a theme that I've been able to identify and accept lately, if you will. You know, you and I were talking earlier, and it's like, who are we? How do we show up? What do you want to be known for? And I even though I still struggle with that sometimes. Like, for instance, today I had a call and I looked at the context of the call and I was just like, oh, how did this person get on my calendar? Right.
Yeah.
That's
happened before.
Right. And then I stopped and I said, wait a minute. I'm just going to show up and serve. I'm not going to prejudge. And I set all that aside. And so I wound up having a great conversation with this person who I might have just cast aside. And it was a totally appropriate conversation, and it's going to lead to something what seems to be meaningful. Now, how does that relate to your question about the book? At that time, I think that book came out in 2020.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Right when COVID was like in swing, or soon after that or whatever, because I put it on pause. And then I waited a bit. And then anyway, so in 2020, what I saw was, an acceleration of the disruption in real estate of technology, right? I really saw it finally reach its point where it's really like, happening.
Yeah. We had no choice.
Right. And it had been talked about for a long time, but never really happened. Right. Now we're seeing it happen even more so today with other things that are happening technology wise. But the point is I was like, people are confused. People are lost. There's a lot of misinformation out there. There's a lot of half truth. There's a lot of people just trying to sell you a bill of goods. And I was like, how can I take my creative desire and put that in the context of the book? Because obviously on the other side of that coin mentally is I also understand if I'm looking to build a brand or, attract people, I understand the power of a book to do that. So I said, well, great. That serves both things at the same time. It serves the ability for me to help other people understand, but I also get rewarded for that, because if I put a good book together, which by the way, that's the minimum, right? I remember Michael Gerber years ago had a saying he said to Tim Ferriss, who's a big podcaster, and Tim was thinking about writing his book, The 4-Hour Workweek. And Michael Gerber, author of the E-Myth series and all that, Michael Gerber said, if you're going to write a book, write an effing book, meaning don't half-ass it. And so I took a year to write that book. And, there's a certain amount of pride in that, because I see a lot of people put out books that aren't really books, they're articles. So anyway, it was really a desire to serve and help people navigate all that change that was coming at them fast.
Mhm. You know, and even looking through the book, I think that fear keeps people from making the changes that they know they need to make.
Mhm.
And still today, I mean, knowing as fast as things are moving and changing, there's still that element of fear of failure, fear of embarrassment. I don't know what it is, because fear is just
Sure.
not an emotion that I
Judgment.
deal much with.
Mhm.
But I do know that fear is very paralyzing. But I think also the biggest part of that is just putting yourself out there.
Yeah.
Like, if you're the first to do it, all eyes are on you. So it still goes back to that fear of failure, fear of
Yeah.
embarrassment.
Who wants to go first, right? Who wants to be the first person to raise their hand in class? Nobody. Who
Yeah.
wants to be the first person to volunteer for the thing? Who wants to share their opinion? No, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like, all reluctant to. We need somebody to go first.
Mhm. Yeah, and still as grown-ups, we still have that self-confidence issue, the same as we did. I mean, yes, you grow out of it, I guess. We all grow out of it eventually, or we hope that we do.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, and just whenever I'm looking at that book and really thinking through that and just applying it to life in general, there's just
Well, look, the title of the book itself, Disrupt or Die, right?
yeah.
I mean, that is a mindset shift. That is, I was thinking earlier, that is, you've heard the concept of growth mindset versus fixed mindset. And
Mhm.
that's part of the challenge that people in the real estate industry have been facing is I've been doing it for so long this way and I'm getting results. Why do I need to change? Right.
Mhm.
And I've always been a believer in that there is no staying level. There is no green and growing, right? Or I'm sorry, there is no staying the same. The saying is you're either green and growing or ripe and rotting. And so you're either making progress.
Wait, I gotta write that down. Green and growing or ripe and rotting.
Yeah. Like you don't just, there is no status quo, right? There is no, like you're either moving forward or moving backwards. You feels like you're staying the same treading water, but you can only do that for so long. Right. And then you're going to get lost. So, that's also to your point earlier about the book is also largely talks about mindset, which is why I share examples of agents and loan officers in the book who did make that shift and did say, you know what, this social media thing, like this is something that I better get on or I'm going to be left behind. But it does take a mindset for us to, because let's face it, the other thing with this new world of technology, none of us started out good holding up a phone and being able to self-record our, and all that jazz. We had to learn how to do that, which goes back to the growth mindset. I can improve with effort and practice.
Yep. So, hang on, I'm writing that down. You've got all kind of good nuggets. So if someone's driving and they can't write it down, they'll have to rewind or
green and growing or ripe and rotting. Yeah.
Yeah. Improve and practice. So, and I think about the very first time I ever made my first post in Facebook. And the fear of hitting that post button. And I remember my kids going, of course, I had my kids around me. And I remember my kids going, if you don't like it, you can just delete it.
Right.
And I think that that's the one thing. There's hardly anything in life that you can't undo. Well,
there might be a few, but
there's a few things in life that you can't undo, but
but we're not talking about life and death here. If we're talking about just like content on social media and so forth, that's not life and death.
No, it's not.
Right. That is, yes, you can delete it. Yes, it will disappear from the feed. Right.
Yeah.
And you'll get better. But the only way to get better is like the whole bike riding example, whatever metaphors we want to use. Right.
Yeah.
Playing an instrument.
But you know what? I think that you being that example to somebody else might have been the one thing that somebody needed to see you do before they tried it. Yes. So even though you didn't do it perfectly, the fact that you did it is an inspiration to somebody.
Absolutely. And you may not ever know you've been an inspiration to someone. And that's probably
you won't.
Exactly. That's even more likely that you won't. Yeah.
Chances are you're not. So just thinking outside of the box and just do it. Just like Nike says, just do it. Just do it.
Yeah. Well, if you want to stay relevant, if we're talking about a business context, if you want to stay relevant, even back to that example of I've been doing it for so long and I'm getting results, right? And I remember I was on a webinar a few years ago and I was talking about Facebook or something. And there was somebody on there who in the chat had said, I've been in this business 15 years and I don't get any business from Facebook. Why do I need to be on Facebook?
Yeah, exactly.
And I was like, well, that's first of all, not a growth mindset, right? And number two is, do you want to be relevant 5 years from now?
Right. Yeah. I was listening to this podcast with Mel Robbins yesterday. I didn't get to finish it, unfortunately, but it was talking about the importance of whenever it's all about habits. Mm-hmm. If you really want to make a change, you got to figure out what habits it is that you need to adopt. Mm-hmm. And habits don't become habits automatically. You just got to make yourself do it over and over and over until it becomes that muscle memory habit. It's just the thing that you do. Yeah. Whether it be, for me, I had recently read a book, Change Your Schedule, Change Your Life. And it kind of follows the Ayurveda. Well, not kind of, it does. And it just talks about the circadian rhythm of your body and the things that your body is automatically doing because that's how your body was built. The functions of your body was built.
Yes.
So if you work with the functions of your body, then you do this at this time and this at this time and this at this time. So I decided, I'm going to really follow that. And one of the changes that had to be made if I was going to follow that was to get up in the morning and exercise first thing in the morning, drink some water, and then go exercise. For me, that meant just getting outside and walking.
Yes.
And so getting up early in the morning before the sun comes up, watch the sun rise while I'm doing my walking, and then coming back and then doing my morning routine. Total change in the routine. It's not a habit at all. The only way I'm going to get addicted to this new way of this new lifestyle is to just do it.
Right.
And it went into further explanation on why you wouldn't want to work out at lunch, which has been my routine for a lot of years, working out at lunch. And that is because you want to be careful about when, at lunchtime, your body is ready to process food. And so if you direct the blood flow away from your digestive system, then now you're depleting some of what it needs, the energy that it needs to process food. So, anyway, it's just one of those reminders that habits don't come natural. You have to practice whatever it is that you are trying to integrate into your life over and over until it becomes a habit.
Yeah.
Same thing in business and life. It's all the same. It's still habits. Time.
Well, I mean, I think we are our habits.
Absolutely.
That's who we are. I mean, anything that shows up in the quality of our life comes down to our habits and systems. One of my favorite books, I'm sure you know it, Atomic Habits, right? When it comes to, and that was a groundbreaking book when it came down to I remember the biggest thing, one of the ahas moments for me for that book was we don't get our goals, right? We get our habits and systems. And it really switched for me. I was like, whoa, I set a goal. That doesn't mean crap. Mm-hmm. Doesn't mean anything. It's just ink on a paper or whatever. Mm-hmm. And it's like, you can set that goal, wonderful, but if you don't have the habits and systems to and he talks about how you shouldn't even be focusing on the goal. You should be focusing on the habits and systems because that's what will get you to the goal.
But what I've even learned to take that even further is for me, because I'm such a strategist, if I have a goal, then it's like, okay, what is the goal? Now I got to reverse into engineer into what are the steps to achieving the goal? And then how do I, like you said, how do you create a habit out of each one of those steps that then help you reach a goal? And then your focus is not on the goal. It's now on if I do this, I get this result eventually. But what I have learned to do just through my experience with Dr. Joe Dispenza, change your thoughts, change your life. Yeah. Really, for me now, it's like, okay, if I do this and this becomes a habit, how will I feel? And I want the feeling, same thing as hitting the goal. The goal really is, what is that feeling? What's that dopamine rush going to be when you get that goal? Well, if I can calibrate and get joy out of the feeling that I get for doing the thing that brings me, that it ultimately I end up with this goal, then my life is more filled with joy because I am feeling into what it feels like to accomplish the little micro steps, right?
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. We got to be tuned into how's it making us feel. Of course, we're driven by emotions, and we need to be kind of aware of those emotions. But yeah, it's like we need to. How do you build successful habits? You need to create. First of all, you need to make it easy to win, to succeed. And then you need to create those repeated wins, right? That stack up over time. Those little wins that build that momentum that go into you getting that result that you want.
Yeah. And another book that I cracked open and started reading, I've read a little bit on, and then I put it down. I'll read a little bit more, is Dan Sullivan's book.
Which one?
Gap. Oh my gosh.
Gap in the Gain. Yeah.
Gap in the Gain. Yeah.
Yeah. Love that.
Yeah. And just really finding the joy in the gain instead of,
the lack in the gap when you
lack in the gap. Yeah.
Another
really, really good book.
Yeah. Again, that was I've started listening to what I do now is audiobooks. So my routine has been in the morning. I haven't been working out because I work out typically in the evening or afternoon around 4. And I've done both. I've worked out early in the morning. Anyways, that just works for me right now. But in the morning, what I do instead is I do some mobility work.
Yeah, I got you thinking about your body and your body chemistry now, didn't I?
Yeah, exactly. It just means I got to get up earlier. But I usually go out and do mobility work for 20 minutes, and I put on an audiobook, and that's how I get my reading in now.
Another, we're talking about all these books. Everybody's going to be looking at books.
Yeah.
One thing that I learned from a friend of mine, Aaron Gordon, recently, I say recently, about a year ago, there's this app called Headway. Have you heard of it?
Headway? I think I've heard of it. Yeah, I know Headspace.
Okay. Now, Headway is super cool because it's an audio cliff note version of books.
Oh, right. Yes.
So it's 15 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes. They cover the entire book, highlight.
Yes.
And then you can even print out or copy, paste, highlight, whatever, the content of this Cliff Note version of a book. But the beauty is, if you were to say, hey, have you read such and such book? If I didn't have time to read that book, but you and I were going to have a conversation about it, and maybe I'm reading 2 or 3 other books, and I don't want another book in my head, then I could just go to Headway, download, listen to it while I'm putting my makeup on in the morning. And then I also can save all of the Cliff Note notes, email it to myself, and then I have all of that. Now, if I'm really interested in the book, then I'll just go ahead and buy the full book and read the whole entire thing. Right.
Yeah. It's funny. No wonder that app sounded familiar. I have it on my phone.
Yeah.
And I get the notifications on my Apple Watch of like, you can do it. You can finish reading.
Yeah. It's just a good way to get some, content in. Yeah. If you're not sure you want to buy the whole book, you just go ahead and Headway. So,
interesting for the point about reading is I've also tried to take this on too, is I've given myself permission to, like, if a book isn't drawing me in, like in the first 3 chapters, forget it. You know what I mean? And that's okay. Because it should. And by the way, I'm also trying to, because we all have limited time, I'm also trying to the degree I can, just read books that are what I need right now. That makes sense.
Yes, it does. I've got a whole stack of books that I know I will eventually read. They will resonate with me later. I felt led to get them, but I don't feel like I need to read them right now. I totally get what you're saying.
Like, for me, the permission to say, you know what, this book isn't that great, or I'm not feeling it right now, or it just doesn't, whatever the thing is. I don't know that anybody else feels that, but I always felt like, no, I have to complete a book, as drudgery as it is. Right.
No, I think that for me, it's an upbringing thing. You got to finish what you started. You got to
Right.
eat what's on your plate. If you put it on your plate, you got to eat it. So I think that it's probably some old programming that we have so far back that it really doesn't. Yeah. I love
The
that
new
you
version of
give
that
your
is,
permission.
if it's not serving you, delete it,
Delete
set
it,
it
yeah.
aside, move on,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
And that's
And it's
true in a
okay.
lot of things other than books too.
Yes, it is. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I try to keep the podcast pretty short because I know that most of my listeners are really busy.
Mhm.
So if we were to wrap this up and summarize, what are some last thoughts that you would like to add?
Wow, that is a great question. That's a very open-ended question. I would say, so I was asked a similar question on a podcast a while back, and my answer to the same style of question is that you are enough.
Love it. Absolutely.
You don't need to be fixed. You don't need to any special permission or degree. Like, you just, all you need is you. You know what I mean? And that thought, that idea, that creative thing that you just go
Mhm.
with that. And granted, we might need some skills. We might need a little development, but you aren't broken. Don't need to be fixed.
I so love that. I have heard for too long, we're all broken in our own way. No, we're
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
No, you're human and you are enough as you are.
I might be imperfect, but hey, so is everyone else.
Exactly. Yes, you're beautifully enough as you are.
Yeah, well, you're beautifully created, right?
Mm-hmm.
Divinely created, all that kind of stuff. So embrace that, own it. There you go. That's what I would
Love
say.
it. Yeah. Well, I thank you so much. You had me on your show.
Mhm.
I don't even remember how many years ago it was. And I just love how long?
Oh, you're right. It's probably a couple of years
Oh,
ago.
I thought you said 5, and I was like, I don't think it's been 5, but maybe. Anyway, I love what you've what you've created, and you do serve with your heart, and that is seen in everything that you do. So I appreciate all that you do for everyone. So
Thank you for having me, and you the same. You're making an impact out there and leading from the heart, and I think people know it and they feel it, and that's why it's resonating.
yeah, thank you. Thank you. And you are, so those of you guys in the mortgage space, you really need to check out what Geoff has put together. I'm a huge fan of education. If you've got information, it just feels good to share that information, and you'd be surprised how many people really want that education from you, delivered in your own authentic way. And Geoff has put together a beautiful, easy platform to use for education. So if you are in the real estate or mortgage space, please check him out. And Geoff, where would they check? Where do you think is the best? Where do you want them to go?
So 2 places. If they want to check out more about the educational platform, it's mortgagemarketing.pro.
Mhm.
And if they are interested in a mortgage related podcast, it'd be mortgagemarketingradio.com.
Perfect. All right. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Listeners, thank you so much for joining in today. Please subscribe if you have not already, leave a review and share. Just please, if this is a message that you think someone would be interested in, please share it with others. And thank you so much for listening.